We'll now talk about the female reproductive system in detail. As you can see in the picture itself, this is the location of the female reproductive system. So the female reproductive system, it consists of a pair of ovaries. We can see over here, these are the two ovaries present. Along with this, there is present a pair of oviducts, also known as the fallopian tubes. Here are our oviducts. And there is present uterus. This is the uterus. Then the cervix area, vagina, and the external genitalia, all of which is located in the pelvic region. So these parts, they form the female reproductive system. But along with this, there is also a pair of mammary glands which are also known as breasts. These glands, they are also integrated structurally as well as functionally to support the various processes which a female undergoes, like the ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, as well as the child care. So that is the reason we will also study the mammary glands or the breasts under the female reproductive system. Now let's see these parts again. So the female reproductive system has paired ovaries. These are the paired ovaries. Then the female reproductive system also has accessory ducts, and the accessory ducts in them are the fallopian tubes, two fallopian tubes. We can see over here these two fallopian tubes. Then the uterus. Uterus also forms the part of the accessory ducts. So here is the uterus, this whole area. Then the cervix and the vagina. All of these form the accessory ducts, vagina, and along with this there is the external genitalia, about which we will study in detail. So these are some of the parts of the female reproductive system. Now let's study the ovaries in detail. As you remember, ovaries are the primary sex organs of the females. So for an organ to be called as primary sex organ, it has to produce the gamete, that is ova in this case, and it has to secrete several steroid hormones, that is the ovarian hormones like estrogen, progesterone, etc. So ovaries are known as primary sex organs in the case of females. We can see the picture of ovaries over here. Then the ovaries are located one on each side of the lower abdomen. We can see one ovary present over here and the other ovary present over here on the either side of the uterus. Each ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeter in length, and it is connected to the pelvic wall as well as to the uterus by the help of ligaments. You can see over here, this is the uterus, and with the help of ligaments, the uterus is joined with the fallopian tubes as well as to the pelvic wall. So this is about the ovaries. Now if we see the internal structure or the section of an ovaries, this is what we will be able to see. Internally, each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma inside. So you can see over here, this is the thin epithelium present on the outside, which is known as the germinal epithelium. And inside this, the whole area which is lying inside is known as the stroma. The stroma is divided into two zones, that is the peripheral outer region known as the cortex and the inner part known as the medulla. We can see over here, this is the cortex region, that is the outer periphery region, and the inner region, this whole inner part is known as the medulla. So the stroma is divided into two. Ovary contains group of cells which are known as follicles. We can see over here, these are the various stages in which the follicles are developing. All of these are the follicles, and inside each follicle is present a centrally placed ovum, that is the female gamete. So every follicle has the developing oocyte, that is the developing ovum. We can see over here, this is the ovum, this, they are in various developmental states. So this is the structure of ovaries. Now let's talk about the oviducts, also known as fallopian tubes. So this is a picture in which these are the fallopian tubes, starting from here and ending over here. They are also known as oviducts. And this is another picture of only one oviduct. So the oviducts or the fallopian tubes, as well as the uterus and the vagina, all of them collectively they are known as the female accessory ducts, as we have studied. The fallopian tube, each fallopian tube is approximately 10 to 12 centimeter in length. So the length of this hole is about 10 to 12 centimeters. And they extend from the periphery of each ovary to the uterus. So this is the ovary and this is the uterus. They are present over here. The part which is present closer to the ovary is a funnel shaped structure and it is known as the infundibulum. We can see over here this funnel shaped structure which is present very near to the ovary. This part is known as the infundibulum. And the edges of infundibulum, they are extended in this way, having finger-like projections. These are known as the fimbriae. It is the fimbriae which help in collecting the ovum after the ovulation. So as soon as the ovum is released from here, it gets collected by the fimbriae and it enters inside the fallopian tube, that is inside the infundibulum part of fallopian tube. The infundibulum then leads into a wider part that is known as the ampulla. We can see over here, this is the wider part. And the isthmus then is the part which leads from the ampulla. So there are approximately 3 parts of a fallopian tube, that is the infundibulum, then the ampulla, the wider part, and then comes a narrow part which is known as the isthmus. It joins to the uterus. We can see over here. The fertilization of the egg and sperm, it takes place in the ampullary isthmic junction, that is in the junction between the ampulla and isthmus. Now let's talk about uterus in detail. The uterus is also known as hystera, or it is also known as womb. So what is uterus? This whole area where the embryo or the fetus, it undergoes development, it is known as the uterus. The uterus is an inverted pear-shaped structure and it is supported by the ligaments and attached to the pelvic wall by the help of ligaments. The uterus opens into the vagina through a narrow area that is known as the cervix. So this hole is the uterus till here, from here and here. Then the uterus leads into a narrow area which is known as cervix, and from the cervix it then extends into the area which is known as vagina. As you remember, insemination takes place inside the vagina. The cavity of the cervix is called as the cervical canal, which along with the vagina forms the area of birth canal. So this area, this cavity is known as the cervical canal. This is the cavity of the cervix. And cervix along with the vagina, both of them, they together form the birth canal through which the parturition or the childbirth takes place. The uterus wall has 3 layers of tissue. This is the wall of uterus. So it is made up of 3 tissues, as we can see. The external thin membranous perimetrium, this is the external layer known as the perimetrium. Then inner to it is present the muscular layer which is known as the myometrium, and inner to the myometrium is present this area which is represented by pink color. It is the endometrium. So it is the inner glandular layer, that is the endometrium, which lines the uterine cavity. It is this endometrium which undergoes cyclic changes during the menstrual cycle. So we are going to study that throughout the menstrual cycle, the endometrium is formed and then it is shed off. So cyclic changes of endometrium are seen during the menstrual cycle, while the function of myometrium is to exhibit strong contractions during the parturition. So only change in endometrium will be seen throughout the menstrual cycle, whereas the perimetrium and myometrium, they remain the same in the case of uterus. The uterus, as we know, is then followed through the cervix. It is followed by the vagina. So this whole area is known as the vagina. And the vagina is a tube that extends from the cervix to the outside of the body. The outside opening of vagina is known as the vaginal orifice. So this area will be known as the vaginal orifice. And the orifice is partially covered by a membrane-like structure which is known as hymen. It is generally told that during the first intercourse, that is during the first sexual intercourse, the hymen is often broken or it is often torn off. But the hymen can also be torn because of heavy sporting activities like horse riding, jumping, cycling, and also by a sudden fall. So the presence or the absence of hymen cannot talk about the virginity of a female, because the hymen can be broken or it can get torn off in other activities as well. And apart from this, vagina, as we have discussed, it is also the site of insemination where the male is going to release the sperms. Then vagina also forms the passageway of the menstrual flow, through which the menstrual flow, that is the tissue along with the blood, is going to come out of the body. And along with the cervix, it also forms the birth canal.
To buy these books, you can go to www.cengage.co.in, or you can also find the links in the video description given below. Thank you.